everybody, it is a beautiful Monday night and I'm finally filming my January recap. So I read 15 books this January, not a lot of physical books. I mainly read them digitally and audiobooks because I was using my Kobo a lot this month since I got it for Christmas, but I'm super duper excited to talk about all 15 books. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, the first book I read on my Kobo was Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. This was a book club pick and Ryan chose this book. I gave it a 3.5 stars. There was a lot that I liked about it. I liked the plot. I was very invested. However, Sam's character, I just hated. I couldn't justify his actions. I thought he was a jerk and I thought he was extremely entitled and he made all of Sadie's problems about him. And I just did not respect that. So that's why I got a 3.5. I loved Sadie's storyline and I loved the storyline for the most part. There were some of Sam's stuff that I was like, I really do like this story, but I feel like the back half of the book kind of ruined him for me. Then I listened to the audiobook of Tom Lake by Anne Patchett. For me, the writing was phenomenal and Meryl Streep was the narrator, so that definitely helped. But I was just bored. I feel like it wasn't really my kind of story in that it centers around a mom telling her daughters about her past. I kind of would preferred just the past and not this sort of like secondary plot line of like the family, because sometimes it would cut back to the family where I just kind of wanted to focus on the plot of the mother when she was young. So I just was bored. But it was very well written, very atmospheric, so 3 stars from me. Okay, then I read a NetGalley book on my Kobo, and that was Two Kinds of Stranger by Steve Kavanaugh. I gave this a 4.5 stars. I thought it was very well written. It was super unique. It's definitely one of those thrillers that like sucks you in right off the bat. Like I was very interested. So I really liked this. It was definitely one of my favorites of the month. Then I listened to the audiobook of In Your Dreams by Sarah Adams, which is the final book in the Rome, Kentucky standalone series. I gave this a 3.5. For me, I was just missing all of like the yearning and the buildup of their relationship. Like I felt like they saw each other again and then boom, they were in love. Like we didn't see any of, you know, the moments before or like any of that. I feel like this would have worked so well as like a time jump. Like we saw some of the past and then we saw some of the present, and I felt like it would have really worked. But obviously the banter was great. The storyline was very cute. I just didn't see chemistry from the couple because we missed that kind of yearning and a little bit of their backstory and their background. I wanted more of that, which is why I landed on a 3.5 for this one. Overall, the series for me is probably a 4-star series because there's some books that I like and there's some that are just okay. I feel like the last two, or no, Beg, Borrow, and Steal is a 5-star and Practice Makes Perfect is a 5-star, and then When in Rome and this one were both kind of like 3-star reads for me. So overall, it's just an okay series. So as you guys know, one of my book reading goals was to read more classics. So this month I read Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I cannot find my copy for some reason, but I did read it physically. This was a 5 stars. I'm obsessed with this book. I need to talk about this book with people. It is so good. I feel like it's one of those books where you have to like trust the process because it starts out very mundane, but the writing is beautiful, which is why I kept reading, and then it just gets crazy. It's so good. I really like this. I definitely want to read more Daphne du Maurier books after this book. It's amazing. Love it. Then I picked up Bunny by Mona Awad. This is another author that I really like. I read All's Well by her and loved it. This is a very Mona Awad-esque book. It's very weird, but like you go into it knowing it's weird. I personally believe that this book is a whole metaphor for schizophrenia and what it's like to have schizophrenia. That was just how I interpreted the book because our main character does talk about schizophrenia in one scene. And after that scene, I was like, wait, does she have schizophrenia? And then the whole book kind of clicked in place for me. And I was like, oh, this is a book about schizophrenia. It's weird. It's cultish. It's kind of scary. So if you're not into like that, you might not like this. I ended up giving it a 4.25 because I feel like there were some moments that were a little bit much for me in like a horror scary sense, but overall I really liked this. I think Mona Awad is definitely going to be an author that I explore more of, because I'm so fascinated by her books and how she writes and her writing style. It's so cool to me. Okay, I was just killing it with the Kobo reads this month. Then I read Fake Skating by Lynn Painter on the Kobo. This was a 4 stars. It was a classic Lynn Painter book. It was cozy and cute for winter. I loved the tropes. I loved kind of the small town hockey vibe. Very cute, just not a 5 star, but obviously I still loved it. A cute and cozy romance read. Then I listened to the audiobook, The New Age of Sexism. This is a nonfiction book, and it is about like AI and sexism. I strongly recommend, if you are a woman in the 21st century, to read this book and educate yourself, because it is absolutely terrifying, absolutely sickening, but like so important to read now. I gave this a 4.25. I believe it might have been a 4, somewhere around that rating, just because some of the imagery was so sickening for me, but I feel like that's why it was so impactful, because I was like, this is disgusting, but like it's so good to have this knowledge. So definitely huge trigger warnings on this book, but you need to read it. It is so important right now as a woman to read this book. Okay, we had another book on NetGalley on my Kobo. This is my current read, so that's just what it's showing. But this one was called Caller Unknown by Jillian McAllister. This book started out so good. I was like, this could be a 5-star read. It was thrilling. It sucked me in right away. And then 50% of the way through the book, I felt like the book was over. Like I was like, all right, like the story kind of wrapped up. We finished. And it just like drastically shifted. And then the end, I just felt like was so unnecessary. So like the back half, pacing wise, just took a turn that I didn't really like. I felt like the book definitely could have been wrapped up much earlier, but they added this whole other plot line that I felt like really wasn't needed. So I gave this a 3. I think it was effective in that it was thrilling, but I was disappointed by that back half of the book. Then I picked up another nonfiction read, The Science of Murder by Carla Valentine. This I got for Christmas, and it's basically the forensics of Agatha Christie books. So it breaks down different Agatha Christie murders and tropes from a forensics lens. So like it looks at blood pathogens, it looks at footprints, it looks at fingerprints, and it just kind of goes through like the history of those things, the history of those in Agatha Christie's books specifically, and also a little bit about her life. Like I feel like I definitely got some more insight into her as a person from reading this book, and like the kind of research that she did and the thought that she put into her books, which I thought was really interesting. I gave this a 3.5. I think it was really interesting for someone who's a big Agatha Christie fan, but there were some chapters that I felt like dragged a little bit, because it does read like a textbook at some points. Obviously, since it's about forensics, and forensics is something I'm a little bit interested in, but not enough to read like textbook level analysis of it. But overall, I think this is a good book, and if you're a fan of mysteries, true crime, Agatha Christie, you should definitely check this out. Okay, then I listened to the audiobook of 49 Miles Alone. I gave this a 2.5 stars. I felt like it was pretty predictable. There were moments where it was really thrilling, and then there were moments where I kind of was like, okay, this feels just like a very predictable, stereotypical thriller kind of survivor story. So I wasn't super impressed by this one. I mean, I'm glad that I read it, but I wasn't too impressed. Then I picked up the Iliad by Homer, which is another classic that was on my list. I actually got this copy from a student because we were talking about it in class, and they were like, you should read it. And I was like, it's on my list. And so they were like, you can borrow my copies of the Iliad and the Odyssey. So I'm very, very grateful for that. I haven't read the Odyssey yet, but I do need to give this back to them. I ended up landing on a 2 stars for this, and it's nothing against like the writing per se. I just think that I'm not an epic war novel person. I definitely like political fantasy when it's kind of like more political fantasy-y. This one was just a lot of war, a lot of Grecian names, and it it just wasn't my favorite. I found it hard to follow, hard to stay invested, but I feel like it's important knowledge that I need to read the Odyssey. So while I wasn't a huge fan of this, I think the Odyssey is going to be more my speed. Next up was Love and Other Brain Experiments on my Kobo. This is also a book that I got from NetGalley and Atira Books. They sent it over to me. Thank you so much for this. I landed on a 3.5. I love a good academia setting. I love a good, you know, academic rivals to lovers, fake dating situation. For me, both characters weren't my favorite. I wasn't super attached to either of them. I mean, I kept reading, you know, I stayed with the story and I thought it was cute and fun, but it was the characters that kind of put me off. So honestly, I feel like this is closer to a 3. I think it did what it needed to do. I just wasn't super connected with any of the characters. Okay, next I listened to the audiobook of Margot's Got Money Troubles. This was another 4.5 stars. I actually got really invested. I started out being like, this might not be for me, but I got so invested in Margot's story. The one thing that kind of put me off, that I honestly might lower it to like a 4.25 or 4, is I felt like the POV inconsistency was confusing. Like sometimes it would be in first person and sometimes it would be in third person, but it was all still from Margot's point of view. So I thought that was a little bit weird and confusing. I wasn't a huge fan of that. And the last book that I read this month was Blue Sisters by Coco Mellors. I gave this a 3.5. I felt like there wasn't a lot of plot happening, and there were definitely more characters that I was more invested in than others. I thought some of these characters were, you know, hard to empathize with, but overall, like, this read like a Taylor Jenkins Reid book. I thought the writing was really beautiful. I definitely want to explore Coco Mellors as a writer. And I did like some aspects of the story, which is why it kind of landed at a 3.5 for me. So those were all 15 books that I read this month. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you check out my bookish social medias in the description box below to see more bookish content from me, and give this video a thumbs up while you're down there and subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!